Howdy all of you delicious people, I'm here today to review She-Hulk Attorney at Law, Season 1, Episode 3. So, there isn't much going on in this episode, so it's going to be really, hopefully very quick for me to just say everything that happens in this episode, because there's nothing going on. The only thing that is to be the most interesting thing in this episode happens towards the end, and I'm not talking about the garbage end credit scene. I'm talking about that we end up getting some additional MCU characters, and I'm excited about that. Regardless of how I'm sure this show is going to ruin these characters, I'm just excited that there is an additional MCU number of characters that are plopped down by the end of this episode. And I'm like, wow. And they add these characters in the worst possible She-Hulk episode. Because, man, is this episode bad. Cameos can't save a show from people saying that it frickin' sucks. And, like, this is obvious in this episode. So, with that said, teeing it up, what is this episode about? Because I have not much to say about it, and I just want to kind of get this one out there. So, episode 3. We have to go on and come back to the Blonsky storyline, where it seems like we may resolve this character from the MCU, question mark. And it seems that also we are to introduce a group into the MCU that I immediately knew who they were, and I thought that was freaking great. Other than that, a whole lot of wasted effort and time to be putting on a She-Hulk episode, because we have a story that is riding on the Dennis character that no one obviously likes. And we also have Pug, who is to seemingly get more screen time in the show also. And I want to say this, and I hope that it is to be reinforced that what I'm about to say here was stupid and meant nothing. We have an additional Asgardian character in this episode, but it was the stupidest thing, and I'm sure that they're going to run with this character and use this person consistently, even though in my brain I'm like, this is stupid, this is dumb. You just wasted my time on a story that was the dumbest thing. And so please don't take that as, oh my god, is Loki in this show? Oh my god, is it gonna be like some big massive Asgardian character that I've been wanting to see for the longest time? So-and-so character Asgardian? No. It's gonna be just some character that it's like, what a lame duck. And I'm not trying to throw anything out there, but like, oh, does he mean Howard the Duck? No, it's a lame duck character. So with that said, let's just go into spoilers, because I am just about this episode. Because it was freaking just, what a waste. If you could go on and just, if there was a recapping of this show, they wouldn't have enough clips to be able to show anything really for the show. But if there was a recap of the show, you can get the whole gist of it and be like, oh, okay, I know about She-Hulk. And I think you should do the same for Ms. Marvel. Just, like, I think somebody should just recap, like, the most limited clips of Miss Marvel and She-Hulk to just have everybody be like, oh yeah, I know the show now. Because that would be much well worth it than watching a complete episode of either one of these shows. For the most point. So, getting to the point now, let's go on, let's double fly this bad boy up. Let's just get out of here, because it's about that time to go into spoiler time. Spoiler time, it's about that time to spoil this episode. So, we, of course, have in this episode where, come to find out, we have to introduce Wong into the She-Hulk attorney-at-law world. Because now that, of course, we have Jennifer, who is to find out that Blonsky was forced by Wong to fight in that battle, that Jennifer went to meet up with Blonsky, and Blonsky's like, no, that wasn't my doing. Like, I was just forced by this guy to do this fight, and, like, go ahead and ask him about it. So now, Jennifer is going on and seeking out Nikki to hope that she can find Wong on Twitter or Facebook or something somewhere. And so Nikki is saying that she is to have a picture of her with a bunch of books to make her look smart, because the character. So it seems somehow that Wong is to get the email or the tweet or whatever, and Wong is to appear in front of Jennifer to tell her that, yes, like, Abomination was to have been collected by Wong, because Wong needed a bout of combat to prove that he was the Sorcerer Supreme, and Wong has to then turn around in Blonsky's parole hearing and say the exact same thing that we've already heard. But it seems that Jennifer has to take a while to get Wong, and so when Jennifer is at Blonsky's parole hearing, we then have her bashing out a number of witnesses that are all to say that Blonsky was to save their marriage, or save their lives, or to help them in some way. Blonsky was. So we also have Blonsky that is to have his 7 soulmates behind him, who are all wearing these kind of flowery like things upon their hair, and they're wearing these kind of white flowing gowns. So they also have to explain the 7 soulmates as if we care, and Jennifer is to quickly explain that they were all from some pen pal thing, and Blonsky's like, well, no, let me explain. Yeah, like, I met all of them in a pen pal, and so, like, Jennifer quickly explains it, but then Blonsky re-explains it, wasting more time. And so we have the parole hearing. They're just like, well, yeah, but he did turn into Abomination once, and we're kind of fearful that he might go on and become this character again. And so Blonsky's like, well, you know what, how about I just, like, take the fear of that away. So Blonsky all of a sudden quickly just becomes Abomination, and then is to just stand there, and then quickly then reforms back into Blonsky, and Jennifer is to justify this action, and it's like, well, hey, like, Abomination could have broken out of his cell at any moment, but he, of course, decided not to. And as well as Wong was to also mention that he, of course, was to want to grant Abomination his freedom, but Blonsky was like, oh no, like, I want to go back and serve my sentence rightfully, because it's the right thing to do. And Wong granted him that. We also had Wong that was to bizarrely mention that he was a guy to make people forget. And I'm like, wasn't that a Cumberbatch of sorts? They're referencing No Way Home, but that wasn't the right Sorcerer Supreme. Do they realize that in the show? Are we retconning now that Wong was to be the Sorcerer Supreme and make people forget about who they were or who Peter Parker was? Spider-Man? Possibly? Through that movie? Is there some retcon going on? Is this another universe that we're not aware of? Is this not the usual 616? I'm confused. But so, it seems that Blonsky is to, it seems, be again, like, putting on this show that he's a really good guy. And the parole hearing's like, yeah, I think we're gonna look into this, and we'll see if we'll see what our thoughts are. And so we had the news that was going on and covering both She-Hulk and both Blonsky here, and they had all these weird, goofy memes going on and all this crap where supposedly She-Hulk is to have had Abomination's baby, because She-Hulk has a bump now, has a baby bump somehow. Sure. I don't know where they got that from. But yeah, so we also had in one of the other episodes, there's this newspaper article mentioning about a guy with claws in one of the newspaper articles. I guess that is a reference to Wolverine, but I think people are taking that as like, oh my god, we're gonna have Wolverine on this show. No. And plus also, if Hugh Jackman is to show up on a She-Hulk show, as Wolverine, my mind will be forever blown. And I would just be like, why did they take a character like that and put it on here? Were they desperate for cameos? That would not make sense to me. It would be great to have a Wolverine anywhere in the MCU, but it just wouldn't make sense to put it in a She-Hulk show. But yeah, like, take the Easter eggs of what you will. So, but yeah, so a bunch of news places are just covering the She-Hulk parole trial with Blonsky. And so Jennifer realizes that it's like, wait a minute, like, how about I just go on, and how about I go on the news and I clear things up, and not only that, she'll get paid a hefty price for doing so, and she'll be there as She-Hulk, and that's what she ends up doing. So, as well as Jennifer showing up to her office consistently as She-Hulk, and so Jennifer shows up at her office to find out that an old friend of hers, who of course is Dennis, is to now need some assistance from Superhero Law Division. And Jennifer's like, well, that's not going to be me. Like, I'm not going to help him. No. And so they even have to ask, why is it that they need superhuman law to go and run this case? And supposedly what happened is that Dennis was supposed to be madly in love with a rapper called Megan Lee Stallion, and was to have dropped a massive amount of money on this rapper of sorts, so that way she can get a cameo in a She-Hulk show. And so somehow this rapper is probably going to be actually, I've never heard of this rapper before, or this lady before, and so I'm like, okay, like, is this a serious actual person? I'd like to hope so, because that is a weird name. But hey, I've heard a stranger. So Dennis is to go on and now and to tell us that Megan Thee Stallion was not actually Megan Thee Stallion, a multi-Grammy award winner, supposedly, and for this show. I don't know. We are to supposedly have this light elf, Runa, be the shape-shifting elf who had gone on and disguised herself as this stallion character and is consistently running amok throughout this episode, pretending that she is a number of people, and then we have to realize that, oh, this must be this light elf. So Pug is to have to be forced to take on this case, and so Dennis is giving Pug his statement about what had happened, and all of a sudden, by the time that Dennis is to leave, Dennis comes back and is to say that he feels that he's going to withdraw this whole entire statement because he realized what a mistake he's made, and then Pug realizes, this is the light elf, isn't it? And then all of a sudden, we then have this elf realize, yeah. And so then the light elf turns into Pug and is to mention how, like much he likes to harass women and all this and that. And he walks away, and Pug is like, yeah, like, that was not me. Like, disregard anything that person just said. So the light elf is going on and shapeshifting into a number of people, and they couldn't have gone on and shapeshifted into a worthwhile cameo for this episode. I'm assuming if there is going to be a worthwhile cameo, we're all of a sudden going to find out it was just the light elf, and we're going to get really ticked about that. So wouldn't that be a way to just, like, really tick someone off? So we have the court case going on with this stupid Dennis light elf thing. And so really Pug's case has to really carry on the fact that, yes, Dennis could be that dumb to think that some rapper is going to immediately fall in love with him because he is that delusional. And so it seems that Pug doesn't have a real witness to bring into this to answer that question. And so it seems that Pug doesn't really have a case. And so Pug is going on and speaking with Jennifer Nicky, and is to realize that they have spent quite a bit of time with this character, Dennis. And so he's like, well, hey, like, I'm going to bring them to the witness stand, and they're going to tell me that they know for a fact this guy is that gullible to think that this guy, or that this elf is to be this rapper. So come to find out, the actual Megan Stallion is in the stand somewhere, and she, of course, is to be watching on as this case unfolds. As well as we also have the light elf going on and pretending that she is to be this judge, and then she's going to reverse the decision that was made, and then she's like, oh, no. Like, here's the thing. if they were to actually go on and do something impressive here, instead of doing a stupid dark elf thing, what they should have gone on and done instead, which I would have thought would have been funny, is they honestly should have went with Impossible Man. I completely get that that is actually tied to the Fantastic Four world of things, but when really looking at it, so was She-Hulk at some point attached to Fantastic Four. If you're going to have somebody go up against She-Hulk, why wouldn't it be Impossible Man? And, like, technically, Impossible Man has elf ears anyways, because when you look at his visuals, Impossible Man would be a great fit for a goofy MCU character instead of some stupid light elf from New Asgard who gives a rip. But it's also kind of funny because, weirdly, the elf attorney was going for diplomatic immunity and talking about, like, because this light elf is from, like, Asgard and they're not in Asgard, so she has diplomatic immunity. It's like, it doesn't work that way. If this was like Thor, then yeah, maybe, but doesn't that doesn't really work. I guess people don't know about lawyer stuff in this show, because heaven forbid they actually have a stretch of dialogue that actually sounds anything lawyer-esh, and they just subject to willy-nilly whatever. So Jennifer gets Dennis off, and everything works out for Dennis in this episode. So She-Hulk leaves for the day and is to go on to make her way home, to then find out that there seems to be a crew of sorts that is to try and go on and stop her. Yes, I said crew for a reason, because we have the entire wrecking crew that shows up in this episode. We, of course, have the leader who has kind of like the long hair and the crowbar. That, of course, is Wrecker. He, of course, is the leader. You can go on and see the wrecking crew in, like, Avengers Earth Mightiest Heroes. The wrecking crew is to be kind of a group that kind of randomly shows up in certain episodes of Marvel shows if they just kind of need, like, an opening, like, group to go up against, like an Avengers or like a Heroes for Hire or something like that. They're kind of like the go-to team that I hope at some point really gets thoroughly used in the MCU. Because I was like, man, this whole episode is garbage, but the Wrecking Crew, though, that was awesome. So we have guys like Thunderball, that is the ski mask character. We have Bulldozer, who is to be the guy in the construction hat. And we have Pile Driver, who is like the fourth guy that I didn't really see much of what he was bringing to the table. So, come to find out, we had Thunderball that was trying to inject She-Hulk with this needle to try to pull out some blood from her. And I'm curious, and I don't think that this is going to legit happen, but it would be freaking amazing if it did. I would be on cloud 9 if the wrecking crew is to go on and be working with the leader, and the reason why these guys were to go on and do this was because they were hired by the leader to get this blood sample, because the leader has been trying for X number of times to try and go on and get samples of Gamma from any of the Hulks before. And so now try the new Hulk on for size. Or we can kind of play around with Abomination needing to get like attacked by these Wrecking Crew characters, and She-Hulk goes on to help him out. And they can play around with that for this episode. But if they're going to give me the leader in this show, I'd be like, oh my god, like, life is just complete. Either that, or if they put out, like, just any, like, if they put out, like, Doc Samson. If, like, Doc Samson is to be the guy who's like, oh no, I wanted this blood sample, and, like, he wanted it because he was going to concoct his own, like, Hulk ability, then I would be fine with that also. Like, anything that ties us in more to Hulk characters, I am all for. Plus, also, we have the whole thing about the tail end of the Incredible Hulk movie that was never fully finished. There was a whole cliffhanger thing where we had Mr. Blue, I don't remember what that guy's name was, but we had Mr. Blue who went on and, and he was to have some of Bruce's blood dip into him, and he was to shift and change into possibly another character. And wouldn't it be great if they finally showed us that character that was to have been years ago that they never were to possibly give us a resolution or a finishing up of what that was. And I would be jazzed about that if they gave us what that character was supposed to be, and they brought back that same actor to just kind of full circle bring everything back to the way it was, for the most point, with the exclusion of Edward Norton, because we've already gone, and that ship has already sailed, sadly enough. So, with that said, I'm gonna get out of here, because, yeah, that's the only thing. We had a stupid end credit scene where we see She-Hulk twerking with Megan Thee Stallion, and I'm like, why do we even have to take minutes out of our day to see this garbage? Is it going to be a memed thing? Are we going to all of a sudden have a bunch of women or men or dogs that are all going to be twerking now because She-Hulk did it? More than likely, it's going to be this stupid thing. But speaking of butt, we have a She-Hulk twerking. Whoop-de-freaking-do. Wrecking Crew was the best thing of this episode, and everything was just awful. And so I'm going to say goodbye here. Goodbye, everybody. Goodbye, everybody.